Welcome to another podcast from George Eastman House, International Museum of Photography and Film.
There are just some images in photography that always resonate with a viewer who's looking at them. They're universal. I am Jeanne Verhulst. I am Associate Curator of Exhibitions, and I manage our traveling exhibitions for George Eastman House. Today I'd like to talk about Ansel Adams' Celebration of Genius. It's a show that we're opening up here. It is a show entirely from our collection, 150 prints from works that were both gifted to us by Ansel Adams, works that we purchased from Ansel Adams. And this show I put together in the world of color, which is today. Ansel Adams chose not to use color, even though he photographed, certainly when color was available. He stuck with black and white, and he was a consummate printer. He worked hours and hours in the darkroom on each print to obtain what he felt while he was standing there taking the picture. Some of the images that you would probably recognize if you didn't know who Ansel Adams was by name is Moonrise Hernandez, that gorgeous image of a moon sort of hanging in a vast sky and this little row of tombstones and houses that are lit below it. That's a very popular image. And that one, aside from the beauty of the image, I enjoy the story that goes behind that one, which is that his 8-year-old son, and a good friend, Cedric Wright, they were coming back from a photo shoot up in Colorado and heading back to New Mexico. And they're driving along, and Ansel Adams sees this scene in front of him, and he throws the brake on and almost puts the car in a ditch, and he yells at everybody to help him get his equipment out. And of course, he's shooting with a large format camera. This is not a point and shoot situation, so he had to haul out all this equipment, lenses, the camera base, and hood to go over, and make sure that his film holders were loaded with film. And he's knowing that the sun is behind him setting, the moon is rising, and he wanted to capture it with the sunlight on the face of these little tombstones and houses in the foreground. And he gets up on the car and he's getting ready to shoot the picture, and he realizes he doesn't have a light meter, and he has to guess at the exposure. So he guesses, and he knows what the luminance of the moon is and makes an exposure. And then he's flipping the film. There's 2 pieces of film per holder and a large format camera, and the sun is gone. The sun sets, and so the picture is gone. He got one shot, and it becomes his most famous image of all time. And it turned out it was not a great negative, and he had to work really hard to obtain the print that he finally has here, that he's most famous for. So I think the story behind it is pretty cool. I am drawn to a couple of his lesser-known images. One is this small one called Grass and Pool, which is an abstract of pine needles sitting on a black background, which is the pool, and the pine needles show up white against the background, and they're just scattered across the surface of the water. Another image that I enjoy is Water and Foam of 1955, so a little bit later of his work. It's in Yosemite Valley, and it's black water with foam that is swirling around with some glistening highlights from the sun. And the foam swirling makes 2 little eddies in a spiral. It's a great abstract. It's just a beautiful picture, I think. Not a great deal of tonality, which he's so famous for, but a little bit more high contrast image, which makes it a bit more modern feel to it. I think he's known for his beautiful black and white images, but I wanted to make sure that people became familiar with Ansel Adams for not just his iconic images that they're used to seeing, but some of these other portraits, abstracts, quiet detail images that people don't really know that Ansel Adams shot. For example, portraits. Rarely do people see his portraits. And we have a number of them in the collection, and we wanted to make sure that people got to know the whole Ansel Adams, not just the famous Ansel Adams.
We hope you've enjoyed this Eastman House podcast, and if you'd like to find out more, visit us at eastmanhouse.org. Ansel Adams, A Celebration of Genius, is sponsored by the law firm of Nixon Peabody and Excellus Blue Cross Blue Shield. This Eastman House podcast is made possible by the generous support of Midtown Athletic Clubs, a leader in upscale athletic and sports resort management with facilities throughout the U.S. and Canada. Visit us at midtownclubs.com.